This is one that nobody likes to do unless they're a sociopath of some sort. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian, a project simply about figuring out how to practically live this everyday relationship with God. We're in Galatians chapter 2, beginning in verse 10. You got to know Peter to some degree and get some background on him. By the time this happens, this event that Paul talks about, it refers to in Galatians chapter 2, Peter is a leader. I mean, just this rock solid leader in the church. He was one of the leaders amongst the disciples, one of the ones that was closest to Jesus, one of the guys who spoke first for the rest of the disciples, one that was out there leading in a variety of ways. Now, you have him, and the first 11 chapters, by the way, of Acts are basically about Peter and his that leadership in the church. Now, along comes Paul about midway through Acts, and Paul becomes a leader in his own right, but his apostleship is questioned by many people. You'll find a defense at the beginning of a lot of his letters. He is one born out of due time, he'll say. So you've got that. He's also this up and coming, if you will, versus this aged Peter who's been in the faith for a long time. And so for Paul to say what he said to Peter here is extremely difficult, and I can't imagine, but he brings it up to the Galatians here, and he says the following. I said verse 10, let's look at 11. But when Cephas, that's Peter, came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men, let's stop right there. First of all, opposing him to his face. That's difficult enough to do, isn't it? To look at somebody, to find, he says he stood condemned. He was wrong for what he was doing. And not only was he wrong, but there are some other aspects he'll bring up in just a minute. It's a serious situation and he needs to be corrected. And so he, for lack of a better way to put it, gets in his grill to say, there's a problem here. And he'll tell you exactly what he says here in a few minutes. For before certain men came from James, he was eating with the Gentiles. Now, these are Jewish people. Remember, Peter's formerly a Jew. Most of these people who've converted to Christ are formerly Jews, and there's a lot of Jewish pressure on these converts, these Christian converts. And so Peter's succumbing to some of this pressure. So before certain men came from James, he was eating with the Gentiles. But when they came, he drew back and separated himself, fearing the circumcision party, the Jewish people, those of that faith. You understand what that's like, right? You're around a certain person or a certain group of people until you feel like the people who have more sway in your life, maybe they wouldn't approve. And so you sort of distance yourself. We did this as kids, right? One of the most embarrassing moments in my life was my best friend Curtis was with me at a football tryout in 6th grade, and he was making a fool of himself. But when people asked me if I was with him, I acted like I didn't even know him, kind of like what Peter did to Jesus. So you understand what Peter's doing here. When the Jews come around, he's not going to have much to do with the Gentiles because in the Jewish mind, they're much lower. So Paul sees this going on here. The rest of the Jews acted hypocritically as well along with him, so that even Barnabas, this is the encourager, by the way, Barnabas led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that their conduct was not in step with the truth of the gospel, see, there's the standard, not in step with the truth of the gospel. It's not just that Peter's wrong now. It's that there are other people who are falling right along in this hypocrisy. Now you got a guy like Barnabas who has pull and sway, who is this encourager, and he's going along with it as well. He's sucked into it as well. So you got all these things here, and the problem is it doesn't hold up. Acting like this is not like Jesus. It's not like the truth of the gospel. That's why Peter stands condemned. I said to Cephas, Peter, before them all, there's another aspect. I know that when I do wrong publicly, I would rather somebody pull me aside. You know why? Because I don't want to be embarrassed. But I'm one of those leaders, and I need somebody to hold me accountable. It's not easy at all, and like I said, nobody wants to do this. But Paul didn't take Peter aside. Now, here he is, this great example and leader in the faith, and it's got to take some nerve. It's got to take a lot of faith on Paul's part just to be able to do this, to talk to him face to face, not gossip, but face to face in front of everybody, and say the following. If you, though a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you force the Gentiles to live like Jews? How can you act like this? Now you're leading Barnabas astray. Now you're leading these other people astray in your hypocrisy as well. This is how you correct a Christian. Not all Christians, not in every situation, but somebody who's a leader like this. And leaders, by the way, if you're watching this, you need to be open to correction. I'll cover that in another video, but we all need to be held accountable. That's part of the beauty, really, of the family of God, is we keep each other in step. Paul saw that Peter was going down the wrong path, leading others with that ability he had to lead, leading them astray as well, and he had to put a stop to it. So he didn't wait for another time. He didn't pull him off to the side. As public as the sin was, Peter dealt with it. I hope that this will encourage you as well. Again, we have very few people who are willing to have this kind of faith that Paul showed here. This is how you correct a strong Christian.